Welcome to the Evolution Partners podcast, where I talk with the world's leading thinkers, planners, and doers who are helping to build great companies in their own way. We learn how the work they're doing is creating an impact and get to know a little bit more about them and what makes them tick. This episode is brought to you by Evolution Partners, where we help leaders to confidently build enduring great companies using our proven, structured, strategic planning process that ensures you build and execute the right plan. Check us out at evolutionpartners.com.au. Also, you can check out our books, Made to Thrive, outlining how to be a great CEO, as well as Onboarded, which is about making your new hires more effective faster. Shannon Susko is a thinker, a planner, and a doer. In fact, she has excelled in all three areas. As a thinker, Shannon is the author of 4 books: The Metronome Effect, The Journey to Predictable Profit, 3-Hag Way, Metronomics, and her latest book, The M Game, The Metronomics Monograph. As a planner, Shannon has founded and scaled her own coaching practice, developing the Metronomics Strategic Execution Framework that annually impacts billions of dollars in mid-market revenue around the world. As a doer, before she founded the coaching business, Shannon built and sold 2 companies less than 6 years apart, including a 2011 sale that ranked in the top 3 mid-market deals on Wall Street. If that's not enough, as a doer, her hobby is completing Ironman triathlons and marathons. She was recognized by the Universal Women's Network Game Changer Award in 2022. She was also recognised as one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women in 2018, 2020, 2022, and in 2023, earning her the right as a Hall of Famer. Shannon, thanks for joining me on the podcast today.
Wow. It's great to be here. That was awesome.
Well, I had to curb your extensive list of accolades to something that wouldn't take up the whole podcast. So, Shannon, what I see in you is a force of nature in a good way. Considering you, I think about a Venn diagram where super smart, super charismatic, and determined achievement come together. And there's you in the center claiming that you're retired when I've seen your calendar and it's full. But beyond that, I'd say that you're the personification of Carol Dweck's growth mindset in a way that I haven't really seen in someone I've met before. If you're willing, please tell us about your early life and what led you to become an entrepreneur.
Oh, that's a good question. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. Everyone probably could have answered that. Father, 40 plus years entrepreneur. And just, it's funny, I didn't know I was an entrepreneur until you become an entrepreneur. Though my father would say he saw it so long ago, so early on, from my first, business that was a janitorial business. And then I had the business in my neighborhood to clean cars, right? Every Friday you get all the cars. And the more often you clean the cars, the less time you had to clean the cars, right?
Yeah.
Very profitable. You only clean it once a month, it's really awful. You never get out there. So I just laugh because it definitely ingrained in how I grew up, ingrained through my father. And funny enough, in our family, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, kids are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Right. So it definitely, you live it, you think it. And I just think it was just such a different mindset than, say, my best friend who was living up with, growing up with parents who, had a totally different upbringing, worked great jobs, worked for big companies, followed the rules, all those things.
Yeah. Awesome. You've said that what motivates you today is that you don't want other entrepreneurs to go through what you did when growing your companies. I've heard you say that many times. What was your mindset in the time before you started experiencing that pain and frustration? What was it that you did, that you worked to, that got you into that spot, then please tell us about that pain and frustration.
Yeah, so I was probably like the unlikely entrepreneur, though maybe other people around me thought like that's your only path, like you're not going to have any patience for anything else. So, and you find like-minded people, you create a company, and it's not that we were uneducated. It's not that we weren't committed. It's not that we, didn't like one another. All those things were true. It's not like we didn't build a great, idea and had one and, get it out there. We did all those things. But the thing that, sort of stalled us was the opportunity for growth, that we could see the opportunity was there. And we wanted that opportunity. We wanted to win it. We really, we raised a lot of money. We wanted a return on investors. We didn't want anyone to, not realize what they bet on us and bet on the team. And, the biggest thing around, I call myself at that point a desperate CEO. And it wasn't desperate like we were running out of money. It wasn't desperate that we, we're going to blow up. It was desperate to grow the company.
Yeah.
And to unlock the growth and gain the momentum, all those things that we hope for. And I was just like, oh, how do we do this? I had a coach and he had, built and scaled 4 companies. Like, okay, John, you must know how to do that. Well, Shannon, we're doing what I know how to do. So you're doing, there must be a silver bullet, John. Isn't there a system? Yeah, no, I don't think there's a system. And so what got us stuck was we didn't have any more time in the day to grow, to do anything more, to scale it. We were actually capped there. And we were working so much in the business and had no time to work on the business, which working on the business is where we wanted to be. And we needed to find another way for the execution to get done. And that's what I see day in and day out. I see myself all over the place. I mean, you run into people too, all over, CEOs who are desperate to get out of the business and work on the business. And that was me. That was absolutely me at that time.
Yeah, that's the thing, the word desperate that you mentioned there, because I was the same. Similar journeys, but I think that's the thing. It is the desperation to say, how do I get this thing to work? I want it to work, but where do I go? Which really takes us to the 2000s. Your business is growing rapidly, and your response isn't necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong here, to work longer hours, but instead to read a business book every week.
Yeah.
To some people that might seem odd. Why did you choose this path?
Well, and it was just on the edge of rolling 2000. I was reading, I'm going to say, I wasn't reading 1 business book a week. I was reading like 4. So I'd had paper. I was listening. I'm talking, for people who are listening from back then, you're carrying around CDs. Like, it wasn't like Audible that you just, oh yeah, you can carry around all your books. Like, you're carrying this stuff, all the cases, they're in your car. You've got the player. I mean, it was pretty crazy, but that desperation drove me, and my coach not providing a system drove me to go and learn, like go and find the system. Like I'm not the first person who ran into this problem, and I wasn't going to be the last, but I was wanting to learn from others. So I started like reading as many business books as I can. And yes, I learned so many great things. That's where I got introduced to Jim Collins, Pat Lencioni a little later. Who else is there? Brad Smart, Michael Porter. Like, I can go on and on and on, right? Those were great whats, but I was still lost on the how. And so I just kept reading and reading and reading until we got to the point where, we sort of exhausted as many books as I could read. And my coach still was like, Shannon, there isn't one system. I was like, well, there should be. Why isn't there one system?
Yeah.
And so, we had it out over that. And then I went to my leadership team of the time, who was fantastic global leadership team, who moved to Whistler, British Columbia, Canada, from all over the world. And they were like, we're in, let's build the system, right? And that's sort of like the books led us to all the important pieces, but we didn't know how to connect them all in a repeatable way. Right.
And so it was at that early point, your coach was encouraging you to read and learn more.
Yes.
Yeah. That's...
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the great news is it was, there are some really interesting books that he would bring for me to read. And I would always, have a whole lot more. He was like, I don't even know how you're doing all this. And I'm like, well, I'm listening, I'm on planes, trains, automobile. I was traveling the world, building the business. So I had time to do all that. And, he would bring me at least a book a month, right? He's like, a book a month. And I'm doing like 11 more, right? So
it's, I dwell on this point because when we work with teams, we encourage all leaders, all people on leadership teams, to have a personal professional development goal, as I know you do. And for many leaders, they just either have given up on reading business books or life's gotten in the way or something.
Yeah.
But it's important to curate your path. But I love it that it was your coach who really prompted you at the beginning. Look, you've got to learn, and you've got to really commit to this. And then you embraced it.
Yeah. And then, the biggest thing in our journey with this coach is, he was my coach, like the CEO coach.
Yeah.
And through this journey, and what we learned was, it was great that I was learning all these things, but I said to him, I need to learn with my team. And I want you to coach me with my team. Yep. I'm going to grow a lot faster if you see what's happening on the team and you're with me, and that those, the books that you bring, I'm going to read them with my leadership team. Right. And we read a book a month, and we know, like I say it all the time, why I work with my teams. Teams that learn together win together. It's no different than if you're on the pitch, whatever your sport is. If you're on the court, you're on the ice. Like when you learn together with your team, you learn a new play, you learn a new skill. Okay, like that's going to help you win the game. And so that I sort of just brought that in, and he was like he was not unwilling whatsoever to become the CEO plus leadership team coach. I mean, that's where that came from. Was from John, saying to me, like, I need to grow you into being a coach, and then you need to grow your leaders into a coach, and they need to grow their leaders into a coach. And I said, well, we should be doing this together. Like, let's do this. Let's grow together. Right. So, pretty huge moments. And I give a lot of credit to John Kelly, who just was willing. He didn't have to. He'd been there, done it 4 or 5 times. Yeah. But the fact that he invested in me and was willing to grow with me was amazing.
And so you've spoken today and extensively in the past about your coaching relationship with John, how that impacted you, and the importance of that in your journey and success. So what do you think that, outside of learning, what do you think you learned from John?
Well, the biggest, the number one thing that I learned from John, it's so simple, right? It's the simplest thing, that you have to stop. You have to take a breath. You have to think quickly about the situation you're in and have the self-awareness to then ask the next question. And like, that is it. I mean, it's still today as a coach, I coach 6 companies. It's like, that is still the thing. Yeah. That is the hugest value. And it's asking that right question at the right time. Yeah. And, John coached me into doing that with my team, where then I could train them to do that with their team and so on. That's the number one thing. And it's interesting. A lot of people would have probably said, oh, you probably got the system from John. Well, I didn't. John didn't have a growth system, but John, the seventh system is the coach cascade system in Metronomics, and it came from John. It came from John growing me into a coach, teaching me how to actually grow my coaches into coaches and so on. And I still use it today, of course, within the CEOs and leadership teams I coach. It's my job.
Yeah. So I translate that. The phrase that we use is that the leader has only one tool. The carpenter has hundreds of tools, but the leader, the CEO, has only one tool, and that tool is meetings. And in meetings, telling people what to do is probably ineffective. So therefore, in meetings, you get one tool, and that tool is questions. So you better become amazing at asking questions, which aligns with the leader as a coach philosophy.
I also think the other thing, John, if he was here, he'd probably say, I didn't teach you that. But the other thing that was really important to understand, the only way a CEO can ask great questions is if there's clarity of the team and where they're going.
Yeah. Because
you can ask a great question, but they don't know. They'll say straight up, I don't know. I have no idea where we're going. Yeah. So we can only, like CEOs, when we come in, and I think of John when he came in, like we focused on getting the purpose, the long term, the near term, the 1 year, the 90-day lined up and known and clear, right? With the strategy. Yeah. And then I was enabled. Now I can coach. It's no different than if you're coaching a sport team. Like they need to know what outcomes we're going for, where we're going to end up, where we want to end up. Yeah. And then we can ask questions on how should we get there, right? So that was the other piece. And I see lots of teams and lots of leaders, not wanting, like they want to ask questions. They have the whole intent to ask questions of their team, but they haven't laid out a clear path, of where we're going and where we're heading, so the team can answer the question.
I love it. I want to take you back to a time when you've got investors and a board, and you've got a sense that you'll get fired.
Oh, yeah.
Getting fired from your own company is probably not something that people aspire to
Anybody
do.
wants.
Yeah. So if you don't hit the results that you've committed to, you can sense that you're going to get fired. So then you've got nothing to lose. And so you go all in and set a 3-year goal and an execution plan. Tell us about this time and what happened.
Yeah. So, I even to this day, when I run into CEOs, young and old, who've raised a lot of money, I always say congratulations, and I take a deep breath, and I'm like, you've got the plan dialed, right? You've got the plan. I have no idea how we're going to do that. I'm like, okay, well, that's okay. But, that sort of punches me right in the gut, because that was the time. We raised a lot of money. We're like a little itty bitty company. We raised, 30 million US from good sized VCs, right? South of the border in the US, in Canada. And we put it out there. We had this 5-year super wild ass gas that they invested in and believed we could deliver. And I did too. I wasn't like, no smoke and mirrors, we're doing this. Well, after a quarter or two that you can't show that you're making any progress towards that 5-year super wild ass gas, well, people get uncomfortable. And they get very uncomfortable. And this is this is like, 96, 97, 98, and they're thinking maybe I should have invested the money in that other shiny thing over there, right? And there's so many things going on. And then, they become so uncomfortable with the progress that your board meetings go to monthly. And you're like, oh no, I have to meet with these guys every month. Wow. That's distracting and a lot going on there, right?
Yeah.
But when it goes monthly, it's not a good thing. So I have my CEO roundtable in my village. That's one of my villages of support. I explained to them the situation, and I got, I'm like, well, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? And they were sort of stumped. They're like, well, you better just get executing that plan.
Yeah.
And I was like, like it's just that's not it. Like there's just such a gap from 5 years to 1 year. I can't seem to connect it,
Yeah.
And they're like, you're gonna get fired. I was like, I already know that. That is why I'm asking you these questions of others who have been through it, right? I'm pretty young at that time, and they're pretty funny, and they go, well, what do you think? Like, what do you recommend? What do you think you're going to do? And so I explained to them. I said, well, I'm going to, with my team, establish a 3-year highly achievable goal that will have fiscal, non-fiscal, describe, in a statement where that will get us and what the key, capabilities, and we're going to, line up the strategy. Like I described all that. And they were like, 3 years, 12 quarters, you're going to present this to the board. And I said, yeah, like what else could I do? And they again, they go, you are so fired. You are so fired. You're going to get fired. And I go, I'm going to get fired anyway. So why wouldn't I do this? Right? Why wouldn't I do this? And so, the 3HAG is born. I actually thought everyone had a 3HAG, naively enough. And I was laughed to the party. Like, I just thought this was common outside my own round table. There's this 3 to 5 year thing, but no one chose 3 years is what I learned.
Yeah.
And I chose three years because I could reach out and touch it, because I could map 12 quarters. And with my team, we could lay out the whole plan, right? And then every quarter we could say, here's what we thought was going to happen. Here's what happened. Here's what we're going to do now. And we just kept doing it. Well, I didn't get fired. I did reach my 3HAG, right? The other thing about a 3HAG that everyone misses is that a 3HAG's really human. And it's human for the team, because when you put the line in the sand 3 years from now in that third fiscal year, what your top line is, how much cash in the bank, where you're going to be, what are you going to be known for, capabilities. Like, people are like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, they are so uncomfortable that they want to get comfortable, and so they work towards making it right. And then when I presented it to the board, because the board could now, like, it was clear and simple. Like, I didn't know gobbledygook. I actually delivered in, Vern Harnish's Rockefeller Habits one-page plan format. I got the permission of the chair of my board to say our plan now is 1 page, and they used to get 300.
Yeah.
It's 1 page, trust me. Anyway, they were there like, oh, well, how could it, be any different than what's going on? So, yeah, okay. Anyway, I took them through the story of it, and they were in, and they were probably the most useful through that time, most committed, pulling, network and expertise they had to open doors. And like, they were in too now, right? So not only did I get my team on board to deliver and make it right, the board was on board.
Yeah.
So like, amazingly, yeah, I did not get fired, and we did reach our 3HAG, and we did have a great successful ending for that business. And like it's just to take down the unpredictable and make it predictable. I mean, that's all we're doing. We're just every quarter making it more predictable that we're going to get there.
And we work with startups who are funded, and one of the things I suspect sometimes is that they love the pivot. They love the idea of well, if this, because then they can stay in a creative mode. If this doesn't work, then we can kind of dance over to there, and then look, we might become this type of company, and it's almost like they don't need to be grown-ups or something. I don't know. So the challenge that we always set them is, when are you going to set a 3 year, a 3 hag? When are you going to set
Yes.
a 3 year goal with swim lanes on how you're
Yeah.
going to get there over
Yeah.
12 quarters to the board? Because that's when you
Yeah.
get serious and that's when you grow up. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's because it's so common in the startup communities that you try something and then if you don't get product market fit then you pivot to something else and you pivot to something
Yeah.
else. But eventually you've got to grow up and kind of have a go and really back something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the nice line in the sand, that we put out there with those teams. Okay, some of them are really big, some of them have to be reset, some of them you have to make bigger. But it's getting clear on what most people are not clear on and confident in
Yeah.
is around the strategy of the how. And you and I know, can go on and talk for hours about strategy and the how, but it's that clarity, clear and concise. And then I add that word confident in there. When a team is confident, and our team got confident in the strategy and we could see it and tell it. And I'll never forget, the acquiring company in my first business and my second business, setting up the typical process of multiple, due diligence going on at the same time with many different team members, trying to see if all this is really true, right? And the compliment that we got in both cases was, wow, like your team, knows, believes, confident in the story. And that is like the nicest compliment you could give because of the work that the 3HAG gives. It lays out the path so everyone can see the path to make the story true and to make decisions, right? At the end of the day, you want the team to make better, faster decisions, not yourself. As a CEO, I wanted to make 0 decisions.
How do you feel the way you planned and consistently executed the plan impact the valuation of your company when you sold it?
Oh my gosh. So the first company, because we were so new to it, we weren't as good as the second company because we had done it in the acquiring company of the first. It was good. I mean, we could deliver quarter after quarter pages, right,
Yeah.
to the acquiring company to give them the confidence that what we said was true. The second company is a better story. Not that that wasn't good. The second company is a better story because we only had 12 quarters
Yeah.
of business. We were only 3 years old when we took term sheets and we went into due diligence. And when they're like, can you, share with us your business plan, thinking we're a young, immature company that would bobble this. And, I was like, dude, one press of a button, there you go. It was already in the due diligence room, right? Already up. And they downloaded it. And I instantly got a call and they're like, this is every quarter you've been in business. And you set this 3HAG, we can see it. They read it, they were following it. And they could see the date in the first 3HAG was the date of the last quarter I gave them. And so the impact evaluation was exponential. It's why we had 60 times. The multiple was 60 times in that business because they valued it on the next 3HAG because they had absolute confidence we would hit that 3HAG. And they didn't want anyone else to get this. They didn't want anyone else to have the technology, the company, the team, and they fought big time. So much so that they changed the deal. As they do 3 weeks before it closes, you get the call, hey, I want to talk to you about the term sheet. Okay, I'm ready for that. And this was mind-boggling to me because after they went through all the 12 quarters, they followed all the numbers, they saw all the financial numbers, like the true from the accountants line up with these numbers, they were like, oh my gosh, they had never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
So they called me back and they're like, so we're just going to scrap the earnout. We're a young company, so we had an earnout. We're just going to scrap the earnout. We're just going to pay it all out on the day we close. Would that be okay? And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so good. I'm so okay with that. But I didn't say. I said, I will run that by my board because I had a board, even though it was like two partners founded it, right? We own like all but this little piece of the company, which one of the vendor, like we bought some technology, so they own a bit of the company. And so I said, well, I need to take it to them. So I took that, I actually took it to them exactly like I just explained. And like they were wary and untrusting that we must be leaving money on the table. And I was like, we're not leaving any money on the table. There's no more, like this is beyond our maximum value. Like our iBanker was like, I think he still talks about this deal. I know they wrote about it in his book, right? They were just like, and they were just blown away because they didn't believe the valuation I started with, let alone the valuation we had now.
Yeah.
And so the board was like, I don't know, I don't know if we should go for this. I was like, and they talked about it so much. It was a Friday afternoon that I actually said, I think you should. Yeah, I was actually pretty direct. I said, I think you should get your head out of your rears. I probably said it more direct than that. And think about it this weekend and call me Monday. And I hung up and I left that call and I turned my phone off. And I was just like, I got to finish the deal. We're 3 weeks to go. I knew I'd be like working on the deal and I didn't want the distractions of getting this deal done. And I was really angry with them because an earnout always, for everyone who knows an earnout, it's an opportunity cost.
Yeah.
It's really hard on the people who have to deliver on it. It's a nice way to drag out the valuation. I get it as a buyer. I totally get it. In our case, I love that they saw the predictability of the value of the organization. But it's an opportunity cost, and I was the only one left in the business, and I was like, that is really selfish of you guys. For a couple extra dollars, you guys are gonna like hold it on me for 3 more years.
Yeah.
Like that's not cool. I was really angry with them, and I hung up, and just said, you guys got to go think about it. Well, as soon as I turned my phone on Monday, it rang. They called back. They're like, yes. Yes. Yeah, this is the deal. Like, I never thought I would have to sell the best deal ever. It's 2008 to 2011, the most return anybody saw. There wasn't a better deal out there.
Yeah.
So I was angry for all those reasons. And I just went and got worked on the deal all weekend, and they called back. They're like, okay, sorry about that. Just a moment that there must be more, or a moment of like they weren't trusting the buyer. But I'd spent a lot of time with the buyer. So yes, the predictability in your valuation will drive it up. Way up, and it changes the deal. There's no doubt. I've seen it happen with my clients.
But here's the thing. Fabulous story. What was woven into there is the importance of planning and the importance of having a strategy. And for many business owners who don't have a strategy or a plan, or perhaps even a coach, and they're just going along running, I try to explain to them situations like that where a good strategy, it's not about the cost of the investment on your time to learn strategy, learn what it means, or a coach, or whatever it is, because a good strategy massively impacts your profit, and it massively impacts the value of your company when you get differentiation right.
Yeah, it's just huge. And the funny thing is about, both those situations, and lots of people go, I don't know how you built and sold 2 companies, in the time you did and the age you were. And I said, well, one, like I give a lot of credit, like to my coach, keeping me on the straight and narrow, removing the blind spots, speeding it up. The repeatable system, allowed the leaders in both of those business to focus on what mattered for where we were going, not this today. And like, that's huge. And the repeatable system drives that predictability. I mean, no one's good at predicting the future. That's why everyone's so uncomfortable with it. Yeah. But once you put that line in the sand and you say it out loud, and you tell the team the story behind it, and you tell your board, oh yeah, that's why it's so human. You're going to figure out a way with your team. It's not a straight line. Like Subservio was not a straight line, my
Yeah.
second company. But we still made, all the decisions we need to make to hit the results we are going for, right? So it's so nice to have that strategy piece and that system. Like I was just looking for a repeatable strategy system,
Yeah.
right? That didn't exist, right? Lots of
So
good pieces.
so it's 2011 and you've now sold your company and you've retired. Tell us about your journey from then until now.
Yeah. So I'm still retired. Retirement is what you choose. And my retirement, this is my seniors golf tour, right? Lots of people go out on the seniors golf tour. This is my seniors golf tour. So in 2011, sell the company. I remember that day, I waited. I would not let any money be wired to any of the team members, right? Because
Yep.
we had lots of employee stock options and everybody owned, and it was just I wanted them all to be checks. It sounds very American, but I wanted all checks, and I wanted to walk back to the office. My lawyer's office was like 4 blocks down the street from our office in Vancouver, and I wanted to walk back with the checks and hand each one out and say thank you. And so like I sat and waited. I waited till the money came in. I waited till the checks were cut, like all of it, all of it. And I walked back and handed out everyone and said thank you. We still, like, some people were not going to the other side, and we took care of them well, and others were coming to the other side, and I had to go to the other side of the transaction too. So in 2011, I still had 2 years to work with this company,
Yeah. Yep.
and I learned so much. In both acquisitions, I worked 2 years on the other side, and it was amazing. It's amazing to see and respectfully see how a company gets to that size, without a system, because in both cases they adopted the system that we developed. And so, I do that work, but it wasn't, it was actually pretty boring. I'm just going to be straight up. It was pretty boring.
Yeah.
The fun part was getting the system in. Boring was on the other side because, I through the integration, you get rid of all your team. And then they're like, you own the P&L for Canada. And I'm like, nah, I'm not going to own the P&L for Canada, right? Because I couldn't leave. They could fire me, but I couldn't leave.
Yep.
But I committed I said, here's what I'm going to do. And I did everything I said I would do. When my contract was up, I got released. But in that time, people already knew of the transactions that happened in my world, and CEOs would reach out. CEOs were reaching out and going, well, you must have a system. I want that. I was like, I really don't have a system for you. But yeah, I understand your pain. And then one CEO out of Vancouver was really persistent and said, I told them no, not going to coach you. No. I asked what kind of coach to try and say no. They said CEO plus leadership team coach. I was like, no, not going to do this. You have a system? No. I said, I just don't know if it's going to work, is what it came down. I said, I don't know if the system will work for you, because everywhere it worked up to then worked because I was on the team. I was a CEO or an executive implementing it in the bigger company.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I finally, he wore me down. I said yes. And I coached the system in, all of it, exactly and I made lots of mistakes in the beginning.
Yeah.
Some funny mistakes that I just, thought in my head, well, this is just so easy, they should just do this, but realized I need to break it down a little bit more to get, because we broke it down to learn it. Anyway, they were really successful, and they told 2 friends, and then they told 2 friends, and they told 2 friends, and next thing you know, I have 6 clients, right? I have 6 clients, and I'm like, this is really fun. This works. But, more people were reaching out, and I couldn't help them. I really was looking for balance. I had young children at home. I had, my husband. I have other things to do. And, I want to help these 6 companies. And so, that one-to-many approach came in, and I was like, I will write a book so they stop calling. right? That you've heard that many
Yep.
times from me, but that is as naive as I was. I was like, I'm going to write the metronome effect. I'm going to give everybody the recipe I was looking for. Here's your step by step, paint by numbers. Here's how you do it. Here you go. Off you go. Right? The naive thing was that I figured people would stop calling. The other naive thing I was, and this is terrible, is that I probably, and I don't know, I haven't read that book in a while, the first book. I probably did not give enough credit to my coach at that time. And I don't know if he's ever read the book. I don't know if John Kelly's ever read the book or any of my coaches, because I had lots. If I did give enough credit, because the coach speeds it up.
Yeah.
You can do it yourself. It's going to take 3 times as long, right? The coach speeds it up, and I probably didn't give the coach enough credit in that situation. I'm going to have to read that book now.
Tell us,
Damn it.
tell us, tell us about a client that you've coached who you're proud of, and why.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. But I'm going to bring up one that I've coached probably the longest, right? The longest. So, and we were talking a little bit about this earlier. So 12 years, I'm going to do their 12th annual planning this fall. I'm actually going to be with them tomorrow. And this CEO pretty much begged me, and if he was here, he would say it too. Like, he wanted to work with me so badly. He had heard about me, he's from BC. Oh my gosh, how am I going to work with Shannon? And that's just so funny to me, right? So, okay, hires me because wants to grow and sell the company, right? 3 years, let's do it. Okay, I'm in. I love learner, all the things I look for. Great, let's go. Cool company, nice BC story. It'll be a great BC story. It is a great BC story now. But after 3 years, he could have sold the company. And he didn't sell the company. Why? Because team, business, and life were balanced. It sounds so cliche, but he was having so much fun, right? It gets back to the evergreen companies, right?
Yeah.
And so at 3 years, he could have sold it. He didn't. So we keep working together. And he could have sold it 3 years later. Now we're at 6 years. He could have sold it at 9 years, and he could have sold it this year. Took offers this year. They were great offers. And I said, you better look really hard at these offers. He goes, I don't want to. I'm still having so much fun. There's nothing. I don't want to give this up. This is a ball. I love my team. I love my life. I love what we're doing. I love how we've grown people, all those things. And so why is that one of my favorite? It's one of my favorite because of the evolution of the CEO in all of this.
Yeah.
Leadership 1.0, leader 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. Robert, the CEO, could teach a master class in this.
Yeah.
He and his team are so good at this, at the Metronomics growth system. I mean, it's really interesting. But it's the work that Robert did individually, the work then he coached of his leaders, right? It's and so on. It's it blows me away. And I have another CEO again. Why am I so proud of they doubled every year for 5 years straight. And then we didn't start at 1 million, we started at 70 million, right? And they doubled. The person that doubled in the leadership capability was the CEO.
Yeah.
It was her that doubled.
Yes.
Right? She doubled and kept up with the growth of the organization and ensured she had a leadership team that could keep up with the growth of the organization, even if that meant some really hard decisions and conversations around the team that got the first 3 years, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, right? When you're doubling every year, it's huge. But I'm just so proud of the leaders and their ability to grow. That's what it's all about.
You touched on a really important point there with Robert, the first example. How do you think business owners can avoid falling out of love with their business or wanting to sell to retire, how do you think they can maintain that passion and enjoyment? Because so many times you see company owners who are saying, I've just had enough. I'm just tired. I
Yeah.
just want to get
Oh
out.
my gosh.
But then the problem is when they sell, they're not happy.
No, I know. And this is where Robert truly is. And so when I see Robert, I think Robert's done enough like self, reflection and work. You got to do it
Yeah.
to know what is your sweet spot. Where are you going to be the happiest? And it's funny. At the beginning when we connected, I said, look, Robert came and did the half Ironman with me this weekend. We had, all our husbands, wives, we had family members there, and it was just so great to know that Robert's, partner in life, his wife, is so happy for him to be happy in his business. And I think the biggest thing is, like, I've had CEOs who maybe wanted to go for the evergreen, but did get tired, or they got to an age where there are too many, like, significant friends have passed away or something has happened, and they're like, no, I'm done. I built it big enough. There's value. I'm going to stop now, and I'm going to go and enjoy life. And we know what happens there too. They go, and then they, like, within usually, and I can probably give a couple examples, they're reaching back to me and going, I need something to do. Yeah. Well, they become really good coaches, I'm just going to say.
Yeah.
Right? They just need a little bit of something to do. Right? Yeah. We know that about longevity. You need your mind working. You need that community, right? And you need your other villages as well, right?
So here's the question that you don't want me to ask. What's different about the Metronomics system? Because you've spoken extensively about the system today. What's different about the Metronomics system compared to other systems to operate a business?
Well, I think the biggest difference in the system is the recognition of the team and the human, the human psyche in when you play on a team, when you play individually, and getting a team excited about where they're going. And within that system, we're not just we're not only doing execution, we're not only doing cash, we're not only doing strategy. Those are all the hard edge. We're balancing that out and connecting the 3HAG to the team. Yeah. And then the team gets to commit to that. The team gets to figure out the how. And the connectedness of the system and keeping team and business in balance gives the leader the greatest opportunity to balance their life with what they set out to do. They built a business. Yeah. They loved it at one point, and then it gets to a point where they're like, this is a drag. Yeah. But when they leave it, it's so sad. So the system itself, just, I always say it's a connected system, a balanced connected system. That's the difference. Yes, all the pieces are in, I see all kinds of other systems out there. I love companies who have the courage to put a system in place and commit to a system. But after a while, you can get the hard edge of cash and execution going. And unless you overlie that strategy system, which is the 3HAG, you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, for sure.
You need to know where you're going, and the team needs to know where they're going.
So if there's an entrepreneur or leader who's listening to this podcast and is stuck, perhaps who identifies with where you were, what is your advice to them? Well,
my first piece of advice always is take a step back and look at yourself first and decide, when you started your business, do you have the same personal goals then as you do now? Mm-hmm. And once you reconcile that, then you need to take a step forward and ensure that what you're doing in your everyday life, in your business, aligns to your personal goals.
Yeah.
I know you have seen that. I have seen that many a time. Many people get in the rut of building a business and don't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
And they lose sight of who they are and, their own personal goals in life. And they have a hard time separating them. And it becomes really, really like energy draining and not where they want. So I always say, like I built a tool, the personal one-page plan way back in the day because I was such a geek, coming out of the Rock Habits one-page plan. So built one just because I needed to line up. I still use it today. Like this is 25 years plus later, I still use it. I still use the same thing. I re-up it every quarter because I want to make sure I'm going in the right direction.
Awesome.
Personally, for me first.
What a wonderful answer. Thank you. My next book is about building a better business. So the working title is Bigger Isn't Better, Better is Better. And
yes, I love it.
well, hopefully I can write something that complements the title.
I get it. I totally get it because I say it all the time.
Yeah, thank you. So
Yes.
for you, what do you think that a better business looks like?
A better business is exactly what I believe and what I was always going for, which is a balance, but a balance for the leaders and the team that are in the business, right? A better business doesn't have to be, a bajillion dollars.
Yeah.
A better business is one that is actually serving the purpose, it's serving the values. And that sounds really soft, but the only way we get that is balancing the team with the business that balances with their lives.
Yes.
And if we can't do that, we're not going to be building a better business. And it's actually why I do what I do in retirement, because we were so out of balance. I'm living in Whistler, British Columbia in my 20s, and I'm working a bajillion hours every week. There wasn't any more time. I definitely didn't lose out on skiing, but I didn't get a lot of sleep.
Yeah.
Right? That you can't maintain that
Yeah.
for very long. You can't get married and have 3 kids in 3 years if you like that is not better. That's just not going to work.
Awesome. And in tune with many of the other guests' responses, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
What is a book that you would recommend to our audience that isn't your book or my book?
No, there are so many, and I was thinking about, what's the best one I can think of off like right now when I was sort of like, what have I read listening? What has had the biggest impact on my mindset in the last, I'm going to say 12 months?
Yep.
It is 10x is better than 2x.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're building bigger. That just means that you're taking steps for growth, right? And I love what Ben Hardy put into that book. And a lot of people, he even says in his book, will get so far and blow it off. But if you pick up that book, it's about mindset, because it's not necessarily 10xing your top line, your bottom line. It's like, think about, where you want to go.
It's really funny because it's one of those rare books where on the surface, what it seems to be is what it actually isn't. Like you said, it's about the mindset of thinking, what's slowing me down? What's stopping me?
Yeah.
What can I
What are the
eliminate?
things I need to say no to? What are the few decisions I need to make in order to reframe? How do I raise the floor? Because, someone asked me, they're like, oh, wow, you've done a lot of things in your life and all these things. I go, what's the secret? And I go, well, I'm just focusing and framing.
Yeah.
And then I'm deciding on what are the key things. There's only a few decisions when you frame things, right?
Yeah.
If you frame it really low, there's so many decisions. You might never get there, but I don't want to make that many. So I try and, go, oh, I'm here. And oh, then I'm here. But I took that book as a mindset. And way I use it with, the leaders I work with is for mindset on the want, not the need.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The want, not the need. And it's when you, like, yeah, it'll change the whole discussion we're having with the team when it's a want and not a need. It
I
makes
love
it
it.
makes it so fun.
Yeah, I love it. Love that book too. How can people learn more about you and your business?
Oh, well, they can go to metronomics.com. It has all the information and more than you probably, want to learn. Any of the books will give you a good insight into my mindset and the system. And then the last thing I'd say, just reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. I love it. I love connecting with entrepreneurs, leaders, CEOs, experienced, and those that are on a great journey.
Wonderful. Thank you. What haven't we discussed that you wanted to cover off today?
Well, we covered a lot. Some I wanted to talk about and some I didn't. But I would say, uh, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity because we, met a long time ago. Bit of kindred spirits when it comes to strategy and entrepreneurship and growth
Yeah.
and really just figuring out how to make an impact. And you and I had a great discussion about impact. It's probably in around 2020, actually. And everything that I know you're doing today and I'm doing today is to help, someone overcome something faster than some of the things that we ran into, that brick wall. And so I just want to say thanks for the opportunity. What a, great discussion, and thank you for all the preparation.
Well, the pleasure is all mine, Shannon. The work that you've done and the people that you've helped is something to really carry and be proud of. So thank you, and thank you for
Thanks.
sharing your wisdom with the audience today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. If you'd be kind enough to leave a review for the podcast, that'd be really helpful to other like-minded entrepreneurs, and then we can grow our community. If you want to find out more about our guests, head over to evolutionpartners.com.au/podcast, where you can find show notes and other additional reading. Hope to see you back next week. Until then, keep thriving.